Hey everybody, welcome to Drive Thru Review 236. Today we're going to talk about Legacy, the Testament of Duke de Crecy. This is a new game from Portal. It plays 1 to 4. It's kind of a weird theme. So basically you're managing your family tree. So you start with sort of a principal in your family. You're going to get them married. They're going to have kids. That generation's going to have kids. And then finally another generation's going to have kids. And then you can do different things for them, kind of get them sort of notoriety and get them titles and different things like that and try to score points. Got some secret goals. And it's got some light worker placement with a little bit more of a card, not card drafting, but sort of a, I don't know, like a San Juan-y kind of, Race for the Galaxy thing where you're using cards to pay for other cards in some senses. And so the cards act as a currency. But the theme is very interesting in how it evolves, and it's not a theme that I would expect to be interesting, but it definitely is interesting in this game. So let's take a look at it, and I'll tell you what I think. Okay, I've got most of the game set up here. You can see some main things. You've got this sort of main board that players will be taking their pawns and doing some worker placement on some of these different spots here to do different actions. Some different decks of cards. These are different based on the number of players. You got a score track up there and then a round track. So basically you have 3 generations. So you got 1 tick, 2 ticks, and then 3 ticks here behind the children cards there. So you're going to play this game over 9 rounds. And like I said, you're basically trying to grow your family, have sort of a prestigious family. So a couple other things you can do here. You can get these titles here, set those, get some points and extra things there, some contributions as well. And then here are the friend cards. These are mostly what you're going to be dealing with. You're going to have a hand of these, and you can see that these are the folks that you're going to be basically marrying off into your family, trying to hopefully make your family a very sort of notorious, at least in a good way, family there. Now players also have their own little player boards here. So there's a couple of things you can see on here. You also have an income track here as well as a prestige track. And so basically during each round or after each round you're going to generate income and actually collect gold money cards that you can see here. Here's the money cards there. So you're actually going to collect this money. Sometimes you'll collect money directly based on some card play. And then every generation you're going to score actually victory points or honor points up there on the main track based on how far up you've moved this here on your personal prestige track. Now you can also take actions here on your board. Now the thing to note about the way you take actions is each of the actions on the main spot is limited to 1 disc per spot. But you can, if you want, stack multiples of your own discs on your own board. There's no limits here, but nobody else can come in here and take this. Everybody has this player board anyway. So to start the game off, you're going to get one of these at random. Now you can flip it to either side, and it's going to be a male figure on one side and a female figure on the other side. This will let you know sort of your starting hand, where your income's going to be, some starting money, and then give you a extra pawn that is specific to a color-coded spot on the board. So if I got this pawn here, I could only use this pawn on the higher doctor space there. You can see the matching light blue spot there. So if you were to get the green pawn here, you can only use that there. Now you can still be blocked from using that. So if I was the blue player there, went to buy a mansion and you had this, well, you're out of luck until the next round. So everybody kind of starts with sort of a specialization, if you will. And then if we look up here on the round tracker there, you can see we've got this little green cube here. You're going to generate money every round. Every generation you're going to generate victory points based on the children and the prestige, and then you're going to be issued now a random colored token here at the start of each generation, and then all your children are going to grow up. It's sort of flipping a card. I'll show that in a second. And you get income, 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 and then at the start of the last generation, you're going to get another random token. Now you have until the end of the generation to use your specialized token. If you don't use the token by the end of the generation, you lose it. So you got a couple of rounds, and you can see the rounds per generation goes up as the game moves along. So before I talk about some of the different actions on the board, let me talk about sort of the main thing that you're going to be focused on in the game. Now, as I said, you're going to get sort of your patriarch or your matriarch of the family there. And then you're going to choose that, and then what you're trying to do is basically marry them off. Now you're also going to get sort of these secret missions here that you can activate during the game and score extra points. So you're going to have these in hand as well. But basically what you're trying to do is marry off different friends to the generation. So let's say I had, that's not going to work. Let's say I had this gal here, Catherine. She's the tax collector's daughter. So what I'm trying to do is basically marry her off here, and then once you have sort of a full couple, then you can start having kids. And so each group there can have children here. Whoops. And so you can have up to 3 children usually per couple. So whenever you take actions in a current generation, because remember, we've got 3 generations up there, so we're in generation 1. So if I take the have children action, we're just looking at this here. So let's say we only had 2, we had a girl and a boy here, so these are there. So now we're going to move on to generation 2, and then now when we take actions, it's going to be in relationship to this generation here. So maybe we'll marry off some other folks here, like that. So whenever you take the marry action, it's going to talk about the second generation, and then when they have kids, they're going to have these. So you're now each of these couples can have 3 kids. So you can kind of see as you have more and more cards out, you're going to need some room on the table to do that. And so if I were to do like a contribution for this generation, I would stick that. You can have basically 1 per couple. But this is basically what you're going to be doing. You're going to score points every generation for the amount of kids that you had, again, as well as the the prestige, where you're on the prestige track. But basically what you're trying to do is you're trying to grow your family, use some of these cool special abilities and get some money and things. And you're also going to want to take note of the sort of characteristics of maybe the profession. This guy's a painter or something, and then this guy is from, I forget where that's from, but here, she's from France here. So you can see sort of an occupation as well as a nationality. Some of your bonus points and end of game scorings and your missions may be based off of some of those characteristics. So let's just take quickly look at the different actions you can do and go from there. So first thing is you're going to be doing a lot of this is marrying off one of your friends. So you're going to have a hand of these friend cards. And you can see here's the cost, but sometimes you're actually going to get money. So indicative of this time period, a lot of the women came with dowries, if you will. Except for this gal. So she is, she's not so great for that aspect. But you can kind of see the difference between these women here. Now I'll have more comments on this particular aspect at the end of the review, but there's some interesting things with these characters here. So you're going to do that. Maybe you have to pay money or get money. I think all the men cost you money. And then you're going to have some different effects here. Maybe you'll move up on the prestige, on your player board there, and then maybe do some different effects there. So some of these cards you're going to see that you're not really going to be able to do a whole lot with them early in the game because your family's not going to be very big. But like this guy, he's going to trigger +2 points for each other and a Spaniard in your family. Well, if you play him in the very, very first turn of the game, that's not going to do anything for you. So it's going to be tricky to try to hold on to some of these cards to get them to score big for you. Some of them might increase your income and your prestige, let you draw cards, gain some of those special tokens I was talking about. So that's the take a marriage action. That's going to be a big part of the game, trying to explore what these cards can do for you. Next one is to have a child, and basically what that means is you're just going to draw the top children card off the deck, and you're going to say, oh, what did I get, a girl or a boy? So here's the boy, and then when they grow up, this is what they're going to look like as a young man. Now what you can do is, if you want, you can actually pay your honor. Again, honor's tracked up there. Let's just be clear, that's honor. And then down here we've got prestige. So you pay your actual victory points to dig for another card. If you're trying to find a specific gender, maybe you don't have any women to marry the boys off to, then you can pay a point per extra card that you dig out of that pile there. So that is having children. Now the next action down here is basically just a way to collect some money if you're getting low on money. So you can just take the action, get $2, or you can pay a point and get 3, or pay a point and discard one of your friend cards to get $4 there. Now the way that you get more friend cards is actually pretty interesting. So you can take this action, pay 0 and just grab 1 friend card, or you can pay some extra money and grab multiple. Well, here we have a display of friend cards, and there's always going to be at least 5 of these until people start grabbing them. So the interesting thing about this is, let's say I grab a friend card, then Billy grabs 1, and then basically what's going to happen is, if there's ever 1 left, whoever grabs the friend cards at that point gets that one for free. So it comes back to my turn. Let's say I do the action here to grab 2 friend cards, just cost me $1, And then since there's only one left, I get that one for free. And then you're going to refill out of the friend deck into that row. That's kind of, I don't know why that's so interesting to me, but it just works out really cool. And just a little bit of manipulation you can do with that. So that is all of the actions you can take on your main player board. I should just mention quickly, there is another side on here. You use this side if you're playing the solitaire game. So here are the actions you can take on the main player board. So if you looked at the left and the rightmost actions, you can see there's titles and contributions. So in the first generation here, you're going to have always the 3 same contributions and the 3 same titles. And then after the first generation's over, we go to the second generation. We're going to draw 2 or 3 more off of there and 3 more off of there, and then there'll be 3 and more at the beginning of generation 3. So what you're going to do is you're going to pair these to a couple. Now a couple can only ever have, you know, 1 contribution and 1 title on there. They don't have to already be a couple. You can do this, you know, before they're actually a couple. If just, you know, if you had one of the people. So you're going to do this. This is going to be the cost there, $2. That's going to bump your prestige up. These do get more powerful as you go through the game. Now this one here is going to cost you $2 and discard a friend card, and then you get 2 on the prestige there. So you can acquire those and match those to a couple. Now another way to get children is to hire a fertility doctor, and you discard a card and pay $2, and then basically you just get to draw 2 of these at random. Now one thing you can notice here is very few of these children are sort of like these you know, once in a lifetime kids based on the beauty or their brains and different things like that. So there's a few of these in there, and there's also a couple, let's see, there's some miscarriage kind of things in here. Let's go try to find one. Nope, she's Einstein. There's a few, here we go. So we have a complication at birth, and then at this point you can choose to either lose the mother or the child. So if you choose to lose the mother, you'll draw another one. If you choose to lose a child, you just lose the child. So if you lose the mother in that case, then you can remarry at a later time. But that is, you know, was a fact of life in this time period. But interesting to include that in the game. Okay, next thing here is to buy a mansion. You can discard a card, pay $3. You get these. You can see what they do. They give you 2 prestige on your prestige track. So each couple can only have, you know, 1 of those. And then we also have the venture here, which is discard 2 cards, pay a victory point, and then you're going to bump up on the income track on your personal board there. So again, you can only have 1 of these. Now these missions are interesting here. So these are going to give you little sort of secret things that you can do to score during the game. So you're going to draw 2 of these and keep 1. And this is like, have at least 2 painters in your family, pay $1 to the bank, and the reward is 3 points. And then this generation, whatever you're currently in, each time you contribute to the community, pay $4 less. So that's the contributions over here. So you can get these different missions like so. Now the other interesting thing about that is, remember I said before you have these end of game bonuses. Now this end of game bonus you're always eligible for. So this one will say plus 9 points if you have at least 7 income. Cool. Now you can see there's these 2 sort of sub bonuses. Now in the last round, or excuse me, the last generation, you can't actually take a mission and actually complete it, but you take it and you put it under this card like so. And that basically allows you to unlock 1 of these 2 bonuses. So if I took another mission, you don't even read it. You just stick the card under there and say, okay, now I can complete 1 of these 2 if I, you know, meet the conditions. So plus 1 point for each $3 I have. If I didn't do any missions in that last generation and put them under the card, I wouldn't be able to do either of these. So again, you can get 2 more of these, and so you can unlock more bonuses there. But you know, that's an action there. You got to discard a card to do that. So that's pretty much the game. You're going to be having children, you know, taking these different actions, maybe doing some missions, getting some different bonuses, really trying to manage all of the friend cards and, you know, get them to combo up with the different bonuses and try to manage your money through them and all those different things. So that's pretty much how you play the game. Okay, I hope you enjoyed the overview. I played this a few times now. I did try the solitaire game. I did not care for the solitaire game at all. It was too constrictive and too sort of puzzly, while at the same time handing you this totally random stack of cards, and I did not really like that. However, that nature of giving you a sort of a hand of cards to start the game that you have to sort of maneuver your way through, that actually works really well, I think, in a multiplayer game with more than, you know, 1 player. It has a feel to me like Bruges, which was released this year from Stefan Feld. I actually like this better than Bruges though. Brews had too much randomness in it for a lot of people. I still kind of like Brews, but I'm getting rid of it, so there you go. But this one has randomness in it, but to me it's a little bit more on the rails. It's a little bit more controlled. It's just better in a lot of ways. Now you are dealt a hand of cards that, like I said, you have to kind of maneuver through. So you've got to say, okay, I've got to use this card, to pay for this other card, but I don't want to get rid of this card because it's going to have like a nationality that I want to score bonuses on. Maybe it meets my mission or my secret goal. So you have to sort of just make a decision like, okay, well, I've got to get up something that I could be useful to play this other thing that I think is going to be more useful in the long run. So I like that. There's a lot of tough decisions, and it's really kind of hard to know which the right one is going to be eventually. So I like that aspect, and that's something that has in common with a Bruges or San Juan or Race for Galaxy kind of thing. The worker placement's pretty cool. It's not really, it's interesting because there's a little bit of worker placement, not a lot, but then they give you the random, specific colored workers. And you just kind of get that, and it's kind of like, well, I wasn't really even planning on having any babies this turn, or buying a venture, or whatever. But I like that aspect of it because it just adds that another little aspect of randomness to the game to make you kind of rethink your plans, and then kind of maneuver around that worker placement token that you've been dealt. So I like that. So to me, it kind of is sort of like a better Bruges, and that's why that just kind of keeps coming up in my head. It gives you not so many different options, but it's also not a random chaotic mess where one player crushes everybody else because he got basically the game handed to him. This can still have a little bit of that, but it's not going to be obvious, 3/5 of the way through the game. It'll probably be obvious when they flip over their end game goal and you're like, well, you had a way better goal, and the cards that you got, fit your goal better. But it's not a huge swing of points or anything. It's usually pretty close. But I know that was something that's been expressed to me by some people I played it with. They were like, "Oh, you had a much better goal. That's why you won." And so, but anyway, I don't think it's that big a deal. But again, it's a card game, so there's going to be randomness in it and things like that. So I definitely like it, and I think what kind of is putting it over the top for me is the theme. It's very interesting to see some of the kind of the story-driven things that happen out of, building your family tree. You're going to have, maybe you're going to be gearing towards a lot of industrial workers or a lot of, English people or a lot of French people. So your family kind of takes up on a nature of its own and things like that. When there's some weird kind of moments where I hate to say this out loud on the internet, but it's like, I was like, hey, I wish you would have a miscarriage on your side because that's going to win me the game. And it's like, that's horrible. That's pretty awful. And it's also another interesting aspect of it was the depiction of women, if you will, or the depiction of men even, and how they work. But you got to remember, this is set in the past. So we were joking around. We're like, well, I can't have a same-sex family here. What's going on here? But it's in Victorian times and stuff. So it has that kind of skirting around it, but some of the caricatures on the cards, you're like, well, that's such a stereotype. And I don't want to make it sound like I'm knocking the game because we had a lot of fun with that. Just the different pictures and the abilities that went along with the characters and things like that. That was pretty cool. So it was kind of like a little window into sort of a prehistoric, ancient kind of medieval mindset. By playing the game. And that was a really cool, interesting thing about it. And that's part of that kind of story element of the family. And we kind of were like making fun of all these different people and how their abilities work and how they behave and stuff. And so, but the humor did definitely go to a dark place in some of the cases, like sort of the miscarriage idea, and there were some other things I won't repeat. But it does go to that. So that's what I said was kind of selling me more on it, was this kind of humorous, interesting, thematic kind of stuff happening over a really solid kind of card game. So anyway, before I talk too much and get myself into trouble, that is Legacy. Definitely take a look at it. Thanks.